Hey, Reddit. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy airing his dirty laundry online, but here I am. I need to get this off my chest. This story isn't some over-the-top Hollywood drama or a soap opera. It's my life, messy, real, and painful. If you've ever had your heart ripped out, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This is about betrayal, revenge, and maybe a little stupidity on my part. But it's all true. Every single word. Let me get straight to the point. My wife didn't cheat on me for love or passion. Nope, it was for money. Just cold, hard cash. She got involved with some guy because he could offer her the stuff I couldn't. Expensive stuff. Fancy, luxury crap. And looking back now, I can't believe I didn't see it sooner. I mean, she played me and I let it happen. But let me back up a bit and start from the beginning. My name? It's not really important right now. Let's just say I'm an average guy. I work in IT. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I've always dreamed of escaping the corporate grind and starting my own business, something tech-related. Maybe an app, or maybe IT consulting. I wanted to make a name for myself, but as you probably know, dreams take money. And I didn't exactly have a lot of that lying around. I guess that's where some of our issues began. Enter Megan, my wife, or should I say my ex-wife now. Megan was the kind of woman who turned heads the second she walked into a room. Picture this. Long, dark hair that always looked perfect, a smile that could melt ice, and a body that could make any guy forget what he was saying. And, of course, she knew exactly how beautiful she was. Trust me, she used it. When we first met, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. She seemed perfect, funny, smart, and yeah, she had a taste for the finer things in life, but I figured, who doesn't want nice stuff? At first, it was small things. A designer purse here, a pair of overpriced shoes there. I didn't think much of it because deep down I thought maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I wasn't earning enough, and I needed to work harder. But as time went on, I started to notice more. It wasn't just about fashion for her. She was obsessed with it. She had a thing for high-end luxury brands. The kind of stuff you see celebrities flaunting on social media. She'd go on about how she deserved the best because in her mind, she was the best. For her, being beautiful wasn't just a gift. It was currency. I didn't see that until it was too late. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't broke. We weren't struggling to make ends meet. We had a decent apartment and we took the occasional vacation. But I wasn't swimming in money either. My job was steady. And I did well enough, but I wasn't making the kind of money to afford $1,500 phones and $600 dresses every other month. And that's when the tension started. We'd argue about money, but not in the let's figure this out together kind of way. It was more like she'd drop these passive-aggressive comments like, it'd be nice if we could take a real vacation for once. Somewhere exotic. Or, I saw this amazing dress today, but I guess I'll wait until we can actually afford it. It drove me nuts. I was busting my ass at work, trying to save for our future, and she was treating life like a luxury shopping spree she couldn't fully participate in. I tried explaining to her that we needed to live within our means, but she'd just get quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that makes you feel like you're failing, like you're not enough. I started picking up extra work where I could, freelance gigs, side jobs, anything to make more money. I had this idea for a tech startup that I thought could really go somewhere, but we were stuck in this financial loop. Every time I tried to save up, something came along. Usually, it was her wanting something new. It was like she had this insatiable need for stuff we didn't even need. The first big red flag? The phone. We were having dinner one night, nothing fancy, just some pasta and wine at our small kitchen table. Her phone was sitting there right next to her plate, and as I reached over for the bread or something, she suddenly grabbed it like it was about to blow up. I froze. It was such a weird reaction. You got something to hide? I asked, half joking, but I wasn't really kidding. She gave me this look, cold, sharp, and defensive. No, she said, flat and emotionless. I'm allowed to have my own space. You don't need to touch my stuff. That didn't sit right with me at all. We never had secrets. At least I thought we didn't. But from that night on, I knew something had changed. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't put my finger on it. From then on, Her phone became like a vault. She carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. And not just carrying it, clutching it like she was afraid I'd get close enough to uncover whatever it was she was hiding. I didn't want to become the paranoid husband who snoops through his wife's phone, but something was gnawing at me. One day, when she was at work, I decided to try my luck. Her phone was sitting on the kitchen counter, and my heart was racing like I was about to do something forbidden. I picked it up. Locked. Of course, it was locked, but it wasn't her usual passcode. No, she had changed it. I didn't know what to do with the anger I felt. I put the phone back, trying to act like nothing was different, but inside, I knew everything had changed. Then came a handbag. You know how people say the devil's in the details? Well, in my case, the devil was in a damn handbag. Megan had been showing off this new purse, telling me it was a really good fake she got online. But one day, while I was sitting alone in the apartment, that bag just sat there, staring back at me, like it was mocking me. Curiosity finally got the better of me, so I picked it up and started Googling. Turns out that so-called really good fake was no fake at all. Nope, it was the real deal, retailing for a cool $3,000. I couldn't believe it. I sat there on the couch, phone in hand, researching every little detail about that brand, checking serial numbers, studying the stitching patterns, everything. There was no doubt. It was authentic. And that's when things started to click. The phone, the clothes, the shoes, none of it was knockoffs. And she wasn't buying any of this stuff with her own paycheck either. Someone else was footing the bill. I confronted her about it that night. Is this bag real? I asked, holding it up like I was a lawyer presenting evidence in court. She didn't even blink. No, of course not. It's a really good copy. You can't even tell? Can you? But this time, I wasn't buying her crap. I knew the truth, and she was lying right to my face. I felt like the world's biggest idiot for believing her all this time. Still, I didn't let it turn into a full-blown fight. Not yet. I wasn't ready to blow things up just based on a hunch. I needed solid proof. And when I found it, things were going to get a whole lot worse before they got better. This was just the tip of the iceberg. I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went, but I was about to find out. Here's where things started to get real. After the handbag incident, I knew I couldn't just let it go anymore. I couldn't sit there pretending everything was fine while Megan, my wife, the woman I thought I knew, was out there lying to my face. But I didn't want to confront her without knowing all the facts. I needed to catch her in the act, so to speak. One morning, I happened to get a day off, but Megan didn't know that. She was up early, dressed in one of her perfectly put-together outfits, makeup flawless, ready to head out for work. Or at least that's what she said. That's when it hit me. Why not follow her? If she was lying to me, I'd finally catch her in the act. Worst case scenario, she really was going to work, and I just looked like a paranoid fool. But deep down, I had a gut feeling she wasn't. She kissed me goodbye, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door like it was just another day. I waited a few minutes to make sure she wouldn't suspect anything, then I followed her. My heart was racing like I was in some kind of detective thriller. I kept my distance as she walked down the street, trying to act casual, but my hands were sweating, and my mind was spinning with a million what-ifs. What if she wasn't going to work? What if she was meeting someone else? And then it happened. She didn't go to her job. She didn't even head in that direction. I followed her for about 10 minutes, but then I lost her. She got into a taxi, and before I could catch the plate number or get close enough to follow, it sped off. I just stood there, watching as the taillights disappeared into the distance, feeling like the rug had been pulled out from under me. But I wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. I decided to head over to her workplace to ask around. When I got there, I saw one of her co-workers, someone I'd seen a few times before at office events or when I'd picked Megan up. She recognized me too, and I tried to play it cool, casually asking if Megan was around or on a break. And that's when the bomb dropped. "Oh, she doesn't work here anymore," the woman said, like it was no big deal. Just another ordinary statement. I felt like the air had been sucked out of me. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "She hasn't worked here in like 3 months. I thought you knew." 3 months? 3 whole months. Megan had been leaving for work every single morning, and I had no clue she didn't even have a job anymore. I felt like I'd just been sucker punched. I thanked the woman and left, my mind spinning in 1,000 directions. The anger bubbling inside me was like fire. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about trust. She'd been lying to me every single day for months. On the drive home, I couldn't keep it all in anymore. I called my best friend, Eric, and spilled the whole story. I was beyond pissed, and I wasn't thinking straight. "I'm done with this, Eric," I said, gripping the steering wheel like I was ready to break it in two. "I'm confronting her tonight. She has no idea what's coming." But Eric, being the calm, level-headed guy he is, tried to talk me down. "Look, don't do anything stupid," he said. "You know your marriage is hanging by a thread, right? If you go in there guns blazing, you might never get the full story. What if there's more to it than you think?" Eric had a point, even though I hated to admit it. If I lost it now, I might never find out who she was really seeing or why she'd been lying to me. And to be honest, I wasn't ready to walk away without getting the full story. "I need your help," I told him. "I have to figure out what's really going on." Eric agreed, and we came up with a plan. The next day, I'd act like I was going to work as usual, but instead, Eric and I would follow her together. He had a better car for it anyway. Tinted windows, smooth ride, totally unnoticeable. So that's exactly what we did. I got up like normal, dressed for work, kissed Megan goodbye like nothing was wrong, and headed out the door. But instead of going to my office, I met up with Eric at the corner, jumped into his car, and we started tailing her. Once again, she took a taxi, but this time, we didn't lose her. She didn't go to some dingy motel or a friend's house. Nope, the taxi took her to one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. Gated communities, multi-million-dollar homes, the kind of place where every house has at least a few luxury cars parked in the driveway. Megan got out of the taxi, casually glanced around like she was making sure no one was watching, and then walked right up to one of those massive houses. And here's the kicker. She didn't knock, didn't ring the doorbell. She pulled out a key and unlocked the door like she owned the damn place. Eric and I stayed parked on the street, stunned. The house was enormous, the kind that just screams money. We sat there, waiting, trying to process what we'd just seen. The day dragged on, and the sun was setting when the front door finally opened again. Megan stepped out, but she wasn't alone. A man followed her. Tall, well-dressed, probably in his mid-40s, and everything about him screamed wealthy. He had his arm around her like they'd done this 100 times, like they were comfortable with each other. That's when Eric pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of the guy. "Let's see who this asshole is," Eric muttered as we started Googling him. It didn't take long to figure it out. The man walking arm in arm with my wife was a big-time real estate mogul. His face was all over the internet. Articles, interviews, charity events, you name it. And the kicker? We found his Instagram profile, filled with photos of him living the high life. But none of those pictures were with Megan. Nope. Every picture with a woman? It was his wife. A completely different woman. I felt sick. The proof I'd been dreading was right in front of me. Megan, the woman I'd built my life with, had been living a double life. And this guy? He wasn't some random fling. He was married too. Eric and I sat there in silence as the weight of it all came crashing down. I knew I couldn't act yet. Not without more. I had to go home, pretend everything was normal, like I hadn't just watched my wife walk out of another man's house. Blowing up now would only make things worse. I told Eric we'd deal with it tomorrow. We had to. But that night, I had to keep calm. I had to go home and play it cool like nothing had changed. So that's what I did. I walked through the door, kissed Megan like everything was fine, but inside, I knew things were far from it. Everything had changed. The next day, the image of Megan walking out of that house with another man still haunted me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I knew I needed more. Blowing up at her didn't feel right. Not yet. I had to get to the bottom of this. That's when I had an idea. The businessman. I couldn't stop thinking about him either. His face, his public life, all on display. He had this whole world out there, but not with Megan. I went back to his Instagram, scrolling through more photos. There he was living it up, trips to exotic places, fancy dinners, luxury everything, but always with his wife by his side. And she wasn't anything like Megan. Sure, she was beautiful, but in a more graceful, understated way. She wasn't all flash like Megan. It didn't take long to find her. She was tagged in enough of his posts, and I found her profile pretty easily. It was private, but that didn't matter. I wasn't planning to snoop through her posts. I had something more direct in mind. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to figure out what to say. I didn't want to come across as some crazy person, but I also knew she deserved to know the truth. So I kept it simple. Hi, I'm reaching out because I have some important information about your husband. I don't want to say too much over a message. Can we meet? I think it's something you'd want to know, and we can meet somewhere public, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I hit send and waited, not sure if she'd even respond. But she did, and it didn't take long. Within an hour, she replied, agreeing to meet the next day at a cafe downtown. The next day, I got there early, nerves eating at me. I wasn't sure what to expect from this meeting. Would she be angry? Would she even believe me? But when she walked in, she was calm, composed. She had that same quiet elegance I'd seen in her photos. We sat down, exchanged a bit of polite small talk, and then I laid it all out. I didn't hold anything back. How I had followed Megan, the house, the photos, and the fact that her husband was cheating on her with my wife. She listened quietly, barely reacting at first. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said, I need to check this out for myself. Give me your number, and I'll be in touch. There wasn't shock or devastation in her voice. It was almost as if she had seen this coming, or at the very least, wasn't surprised that her husband might be capable of it. She stood up, thanked me for letting her know, and walked out, leaving me there to question if I had done the right thing. A week passed, and it felt like the longest week of my life. I had to act like everything was normal at home, like I was still the oblivious husband. But the truth was I knew where Megan was going every day, and every kiss goodbye felt like twisting the knife deeper into my chest. Then a week later, I got the call. It was her. Can you come to my house? She asked. Her voice was calm, eerily so, and I could tell something was brewing. I agreed, and later that day, I found myself pulling up to her place. A massive, elegant home, far nicer than the modest apartment Megan and I shared. She greeted me at the door, leading me into the living room where a bottle of wine and 2 glasses sat on the table. But this wasn't just a casual meeting. I hired a private investigator, she said, getting right to it. He confirmed what you told me. My husband has been renting that house for months, meeting your wife there, and he's been buying her expensive gifts, jewelry, clothes, the works. She poured herself a glass of wine, took a long sip, and then looked me square in the eye. I'm going to ruin him, she said, her voice cold and certain. He thinks he can walk all over me, but he has no idea who he's messing with. There was a weight to her words that hung in the air. This wasn't a woman who was going to sit quietly and let her husband get away with this. She had a plan, and I had a feeling it wasn't going to end well for him. She refilled her glass and then turned to me, sizing me up. Do you want some wine? She asked. I nodded, not really in a position to refuse. I needed something to take the edge off, and I think she did too. We talked for a while after that. She told me about her life, how her father had built the business her husband now ran. Her father was a powerful man, wealthy, the kind of person whose name could open doors or close them. She didn't drop his name, and I got the feeling it was better that way. This woman had grown up surrounded by power and influence, and she clearly knew how to wield it. A few drinks in, the conversation started to flow more easily. She was sharp, confident, and frankly a little intimidating. But then, out of nowhere, she asked me something I didn't expect. Do you want to have sex? It wasn't seductive or flirtatious. It was just a straightforward question. I stared at her, a little caught off guard, but I didn't have to think too hard about my answer. Yes, I said. The next hour was a blur of intensity. She was experienced, that much was clear, and she knew exactly what she wanted. It felt almost transactional, but I didn't care. It was an escape from everything that had been weighing me down, and I was too wrapped up in the moment to feel any guilt. When it was over, I left her house feeling strangely satisfied. Not just from the sex, but from the fact that for the first time in this whole mess, I felt like I had control over something. She wasn't just another scorned wife. She was a woman with a mission, and I was now a part of that mission, whether I liked it or not. When I got home that night, I couldn't pretend anymore. After everything I'd seen and done, I couldn't keep playing the clueless husband. The moment I walked through the door, I knew it was time to confront Megan. There was no more waiting, no more holding back. I slammed the door behind me, and the sound startled her. She looked up with wide eyes, like she knew something was about to go down. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but shaking with anger. She barely glanced up from her phone, still scrolling, acting like nothing was wrong. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. I marched straight over and laid it all out. "I know everything," I said, my voice rising. "I know about the businessman, about the house, about the lies. You think I'm that stupid? You're a fool if you thought I wouldn't figure it out." That got her attention. She dropped her phone and stood up, her face twisting into a mix of anger and disdain. But she didn't even bother denying it. "So what?" she snapped. "I don't need you. I haven't needed you for a long time. You were just a placeholder. He's the one taking care of me now. He loves me. He's going to leave his wife, and we're going to be together." I couldn't believe her audacity. She stood there proud of herself, admitting she'd been waiting for him to leave his wife for her. It was beyond pathetic. "You really think he's going to leave his wife for you?" I asked, letting out a bitter laugh. "You're completely delusional." She glared at me, arms crossed, like she couldn't believe I wasn't buying into her delusion. "He will," she insisted, her voice sharp. "You'll see." "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my tone cold and firm. "You can keep living in your little dream world, but I'm done. We're done." She scoffed, barely fazed. "Good. You should have done that a long time ago." Without another word, she grabbed her bag, threw a few things into it, and walked out the door. No apologies, no regrets, just pure indifference. But she had no clue what was about to hit her in the coming days. A few days later, her fantasy world came crashing down. Her precious businessman? His life imploded. The businessman's wife, the one with all the quiet power, wasn't just sitting idle after our conversation. She was planning her revenge. With the help of her father, she tore down her husband's business, leaving him without a single thread to his name. I caught wind of the details through the grapevine, but honestly, I didn't care to dig deeper. All that mattered was that Megan's little fairy tale had crumbled just as fast as it had started. As for me, I moved ahead with the divorce. The process was quicker than I thought. Megan didn't put up a fight. Why would she? In her mind, she had already moved on. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from the businessman's ex-wife. She invited me over again. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I went. When I got there, she poured me a glass of wine, and we sat down in her elegant living room. "So," she said, fixing me with a calm, calculating look, "what do you want in exchange for all the information you've given me?" At first, I told her I didn't want anything. Just seeing the truth come out was enough for me. But then I paused. I'd been stuck in a dead-end job for years, and there was this idea I'd been sitting on for a while. "Well," I started, "there is one thing. I have a startup idea. It's rough, but I think it has real potential." She listened, not interrupting until I finished. Then she shook her head. "No," she said flatly. "Not like this. Come back tomorrow with a real plan." I didn't waste any time. I spent the entire night working on that idea, refining it, making it something more concrete. The next day, I went back to her house. This time, she wasn't alone. There was a man with her, a business analyst apparently. He listened to my pitch, asked me a few questions, and then turned to her and whispered something. She nodded, then looked at me. "All right," she said. "I'll invest, but I want 35% of the business if it turns profitable." I was stunned. I knew she had influence, but I never expected her to take me seriously. This was beyond anything I'd hoped for. I accepted her terms without a second thought. And now here I am, writing this as I put together a team to get my startup off the ground. I can't go into too much detail yet, but I know this thing is going to take off. I can feel it. It's funny how life works sometimes, isn't it? What started as the worst experience of my life has turned into something that could completely change everything for me. Thanks, Reddit, for letting me unload all of this. Sometimes life takes you down a path you never expected, but maybe that's the point. You don't always know what's waiting for you on the other side. Update. It's been about a year since everything went down, and looking back, it feels like another lifetime. I'm sitting here in my office, writing this update, and I can't help but feel a mix of pride and disbelief at how far I've come. Life is good now, really good, and I owe a lot of it to the hard lessons I learned during one of the darkest periods of my life. So, let me catch you up on the business. That startup I mentioned? It took off faster than I ever could have imagined. The businessman's ex-wife, the one who invested in me, kept her word. She gave me the capital I needed to get things moving, and I built a team that believed in my vision. Those first few months were brutal, late nights, endless meetings, tweaking the product until it was perfect, but it all paid off in the end. The business is booming now. We've got a consistent flow of clients, and it's growing faster than I ever imagined back when this was just a far-fetched dream. And before you start speculating, let me make one thing clear. My relationship with the investor? It's strictly business. She's sharp, all business, and never mixes personal stuff with work. We meet often to discuss the company, and that's it. No hidden motives, no awkwardness, nothing like what happened that first time. We've both put that behind us, and it works. But now, let's get to the fun part, my ex-wife, Megan. Oh yeah, she came crawling back. I didn't expect it, not after the way things ended, but the moment people started talking about how well my business was doing, suddenly she remembered I existed. It started with a message. Real simple. Hey, how have you been? Like she hadn't blown up our life and left me for some other guy. I didn't bother responding. Then the messages started piling up, getting longer and more desperate. She started dropping hints about how much she missed me, how she'd made a mistake, and how she didn't appreciate what she had until it was gone. Textbook behavior, right? The best part was when she finally called one evening, trying to sound all sweet and apologetic. She said all the predictable lines. I still care about you. What we had was special, and maybe we could try again. But let's be real, she didn't give a damn about me. She just saw the money, the success, and figured she could waltz back into my life like nothing happened. I let her ramble for a while before I cut her off and told her to go to hell. Just like that, straight up. I'm not sure if she expected me to say it, but the dead silence on her end of the line told me everything I needed to know. I hung up, and that was the last of it. Let her deal with the mess she created. But enough about her. There's someone new in my life now. I met this girl a few months ago. Let's call her Lily. She's different. No drama, no baggage, no ulterior motives. We met at a friend's party, totally random, but we just hit it off. She's funny, smart, and grounded. The best part? She doesn't care about the money or the business. In fact, she doesn't even know the details about my company. I've been keeping that under wraps, not because I don't trust her, but because I want to make sure she's into me for who I am, not for what I have. We've been spending a lot of time together, and honestly, I'm really starting to like her. It feels good being with someone who doesn't expect anything from me except for honesty and just being myself. After everything I've been through, it's a breath of fresh air. I'm not in a rush to tell her about the business. Maybe one day, when it feels right. But for now, I'm just enjoying getting to know her without all the extra complications. So, that's where I am now. A year ago, I was stuck in the worst chapter of my life, watching everything fall apart. But now I'm running a successful business, surrounded by people who believe in what we're building. I've got my life back, and more than that, I've got hope for the future. To everyone who's been following my story, I want to say thank you. Life can throw you into some pretty brutal situations, but take it from me, you can survive it. You can come out the other side stronger than you ever thought possible. Believe in yourself, in your ability to get through it, and never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. Success isn't just about money or power. It's about learning from the pain, pushing forward, and becoming the best version of yourself. Trust me, I learned that lesson the hard way, but I'm grateful for it, even if it was painful. To anyone reading this, whether you're in the middle of your own storm or just trying to find your way, keep going. Trust that there's something better waiting for you, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Thanks, Reddit, for being there through it all.